The sterile, antiseptic smell of the hospital was still clinging to my skin, a ghost of the last 10 days, as I fumbled with my keys at the front door. My body felt like a hollowed-out gourd, light and brittle, every movement requiring a conscious effort of will. Pneumonia, the doctor had said, a nasty bout. I'd coughed until I saw stars, shivered with fevers that felt like internal earthquakes, and spent a week drifting in and out of a medicated haze. Not a single visitor. My husband, Mark, had called twice. "Work is insane, babe. You rest up. The nurses have you." I pushed the door open, expecting the quiet, dusty stillness of a neglected home. Instead, I was met with a wave of oppressive warmth, the cloying scent of lavender potpourri, and the unmistakable, booming timbre of my mother-in-law's voice. "And she just leaves the dishes in the sink, Mark. I found a plate from last week. A grown woman. It's no wonder you're looking so peaky." There, in my living room, sat Irina, a fortress of a woman, upholstered in a floral dress, her silver hair coiled into a severe bun. Her suitcase, a monstrous tapestry-covered thing, was parked at the foot of the stairs like a claim staker. Mark was on the sofa, looking not peaky, but comfortably sheepish, a bowl of her infamous borscht in his hands. All movement ceased as I stood in the doorway. Irina's eyes, the color of chilled steel, swept over me from my unwashed hair to my sneakers. A flicker of something, disappointment, triumph, passed over her face. "Ah, you're back," she stated, as if commenting on the return of an inconvenient weather pattern. "Look at you, skin and bones, no strength. How can you take care of a household like this? Of my son?" The words didn't even land as an insult at first. I was too physically depleted to process them. I looked at Mark. He gave a weak, placating smile. "Mom's here to help, while you recover." "Help with what?" I rasped, my voice still raw. "With everything," Irina declared, rising. She began to move around the living room, straightening a cushion I'd fluffed a lifetime ago. "The place is a shambles. Mark is working so hard he comes home to an empty, cold house. A man needs a hot meal. Order." I wanted to say that I had been fighting for breath in a hospital bed, that the cold house was because I wasn't in it to turn on the heat, that the man was a 35-year-old software engineer who could, in theory, operate a microwave. But a deep, bone-weary exhaustion silenced me. I simply walked past them, up the stairs to my bedroom, and closed the door. That was my first mistake. My silence was taken as capitulation. Irina's temporary stay solidified into an occupation. My convalescence became her takeover. She cooked, but only Mark's favorite heavy foods. She cleaned, but with a constant audible commentary on the inferiority of my methods. My books were clutter. My preferred olive oil was not proper for cooking. The way I folded towels was sloppy. And Mark, my husband, he basked in it. He became a boy again, bringing his laundry down for Mommy, praising her soups, shrugging at me with a "what can I do" look when she overruled my decisions about anything, from grocery lists to the thermostat setting. One evening, a week after my return, I came downstairs feeling slightly more human. I'd mustered the energy to take a long bath. Irina was lecturing Mark about his diet. "She feeds you too many salads, no substance, no love in a leaf." I stood at the bottom of the stairs. "The doctor said his cholesterol was borderline, Irina. The salads were the doctor's idea." She didn't even turn to look at me. She spoke to Mark as if I were a misbehaving pet. "You see? She listens to strangers in white coats, not to the wisdom of family. A mother knows what her son needs." Mark just nodded, dipping his spoon into a cream-laden stew. The real blow came a few days later. I was in the home office, finally checking emails. I heard them in the kitchen, their voices carrying. "She's weak, Markushka," Irina sighed, using the childhood diminutive that made my skin crawl. "This sickness, it shows a weak constitution. A woman should be the pillar of the home, strong, resilient. Look at her, she still moves like a ghost. How can she be a proper wife to you? How can she give you strong children?" I froze, my hand hovering over the mouse. And Mark, my partner, the man who had vowed to cherish me in sickness and in health. He didn't defend me. He didn't say, "She's been very ill, Mom." He made a non-committal grumbling sound. Agreement. Complicity. That grunt was the catalyst. It was as if a chemical reaction occurred in my veins. The fatigue, the hurt, the loneliness of the hospital, the violation of my home, all of it crystallized into a cold, hard, diamond-sharp resolve. The pillar of the home? No. I would be the wrecking ball, but a quiet one. I stopped arguing. I stopped reacting. I became a ghost in my own house, which seemed to please Irina immensely. She saw it as her victory, my surrender. I saw it as gathering intelligence and conserving energy. I noted how she never paid for a single grocery, how she used my expensive skincare products, how she'd reorganized my kitchen so I couldn't find anything. I listened to her subtle digs about my job, my family, my childless state. I stored every single one. My health returned, slowly, but something else was growing in its place, a steely, unforgiving clarity. I looked at Mark, now permanently nestled in the cocoon of his mother's making, and felt nothing but a distant anthropological curiosity. How had I ever found this man-child to be a life partner? The plan formed not in a burst of anger, but with the meticulous calm of a surgeon. I needed them gone, both of them. One was a parasite. The other was the host willingly offering his blood. You can't treat one without removing the other. I started by seeing a lawyer, a discreet, fierce woman named Sarah, who listened to my story, her eyes growing colder with each detail. Emotional abuse, alienation of affection, constructive abandonment during a medical crisis, she noted. We can work with this, but you need to be ready. It will get ugly. It's already ugly, I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. I just want to sanitize the wound. At home, I began to separate my finances with the stealth of a spy. I opened a new bank account. I gathered important documents. I took photos of Irina's suitcase in the hallway, of her things mingled with ours, evidence of her permanent, uninvited residency. The final act required a performance. I waited for a Friday evening. Irina was holding court over a roast chicken, lamenting how thin I'd carved the slices last time. Mark was nodding along. I set my fork down. The sound was small but deliberate. They both looked at me. I've been thinking, I began, my voice soft, deliberately frail. Irina, you're right. I haven't been enough. This house, Mark, it needs a stronger hand. Irina's eyes narrowed, suspicious but intrigued. Mark looked confused. I've been a burden since my illness, and I can see how happy you are together. I let that hang, a poisonous little cloud. Maybe I should go away for a while, to my sisters, to really recover, so you two can have the space you need. The reaction was instantaneous and pathetic. Irina's face blossomed into a smile of pure, unadulterated victory. She tried to temper it, to look concerned, but it was there. Well, if you think it's for the best, dear, your health is the priority. She was already mentally rearranging the furniture. Mark looked from his mother's pleased face to my resigned one. A conflict flickered in his eyes for a second, a ghost of the man I'd married. But then it was smothered by habit, by comfort. If you think it'll help you get stronger, he said. A few weeks? A few weeks, I echoed, a perfect mimicry of sadness. I packed a single suitcase under Irina's supervising gaze. She helped by suggesting I leave behind my winter coats. It's spring, and your sister's place is so cramped, I hear. I nodded meekly. I hugged Mark goodbye. He felt like a stranger. I'll call, he said. I know you will, I replied. It wasn't a lie. He would call, to ask where the insurance documents were, or why the internet wasn't working. I didn't go to my sister's. I went to a clean, modern apartment I'd rented the week before. The silence there was blissful. It was mine. It held no lavender, no criticism, no echoes of betrayal. I waited 1 week. I let them settle into their new mother-son idyll. Let Mark get used to being fully, completely Irina's boy again. Then, on a Monday morning, I had Sarah serve the papers. Not just divorce papers, a detailed, coldly factual motion for exclusive use of the marital home, citing the presence of a hostile third party, Irina, who had created an untenable living environment, especially for a person recovering from serious illness. It included a financial restraining order. It listed the value of the groceries, the products, the incremental utilities Irina had consumed. It was a legal eviction notice for them both. My phone exploded at 10:15 a.m. First, Mark, sputtering with incoherent rage. "What is this? How could you? This is outrageous. My mother is devastated." "Your mother is a trespasser, Mark," I said, my voice calm, oceanic. "And you allowed it. The papers explain everything. Have your lawyer talk to mine." Then Irina. Her voice, usually so controlled, was a shriek of fury. "You vile, ungrateful girl! You tricked us! You planned this! You want to throw my son out of his own house?" "It's our house, Irina," I corrected with icy politeness. "And yes, I do. You have 72 hours to vacate, as per the court order." I'd start packing that tapestry suitcase. The following days were a storm of threats, pleas, and attempted guilt trips. They tried every weapon in their arsenal. Mark cried about our vows. Irina wailed about her poor heart. They claimed I was cruel, unstable, vindictive. Through Sarah, I remained an immovable object. I had the evidence, the hospital records, the bank statements showing no support during my illness, the documented duration of Irina's stay, the testimony of a neighbor who'd heard her berating me through an open window. I was no longer the weak, sick ghost. I was a fact, a statute, a consequence. On the third day, I went to the house, accompanied by a court officer and a locksmith. They were inside, packing. The air was thick with hatred and defeat. Irina's face was a mask of pure venom, but she was silent for once. She knew she'd been outmaneuvered. Mark looked broken, but not by the loss of me, by the loss of the easy life he'd had for a few weeks. He was a child whose toys were being taken away. "I can't believe you're doing this," he whispered. "I can," I said, looking past him, through him. "Believe me, I can." They left. The officer ensured it. I stood in the suddenly, profoundly quiet living room. The lavender smell was still there, but it was fading, soon to be erased by open windows and the simple scent of free, unjudged air. I didn't feel triumph, not in a joyful sense. I felt a vast, quiet emptiness, like a field after a fire. It was scorched and bare, but the toxic, choking overgrowth was gone. The soil, for the first time in a long time, was mine alone. It would take time to heal, to decide what to plant in this new cleared space. But as I locked the door behind me, my new only key in my hand, I took a deep, deep breath. It didn't hurt. My lungs were clear. The illness, the infestation, was over. I had gathered every last shred of my will, and I had excised them both. The pillar had not crumbled. It had transformed, hardened, and brought the whole rotten temple down. And from the quiet rubble, I would walk away, alone and whole, and finally free.